set to sofa is where it's at. And Lulu, darling, just loves the chat. She talks to stars with grace and style. Lulu sure will make you smile.
Hello, my lovelies. It's Lulu here. Now, today's guest didn't work in front of the camera. He's more well known behind the camera. And oh, what a job he did. Today, I'm chatting with a very dear friend of mine. We've been sharing secrets and lunches for over 30 years now. He's a true titan of the industry, a professional writer who has been the puppet master behind the scenes of everything from Neighbours and Prisoner to the daringly outrageous The Box. But hold on to your hats, because we're not just talking plot points. We're diving into the scandalous side of showbiz. We'll be teasing out the story of a producer who literally stole half Ray's paycheck and the delicious way karma finally caught up with him. We'll find out why a legendary actress once told him, "I could have killed you," after a very wet mishap on a yacht. And you won't believe why he was once treated like a total pariah in the middle of Paris until he revealed his true identity. Plus, he's going to explain why strip shows were his bread and butter. And oh no, it's probably not what you're thinking, you cheeky things. You do not want to miss this peek behind the curtain. Let's get Ray Kolle on the line. Hi, Ray.
Hiya, Lou.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, going well.
Excellent. Gosh, we met so long ago, didn't we? Through Chimpade.
Yeah, a very long time ago, yes.
Yeah, it must have been about over 30 years ago, I think.
Oh, yes, easily.
I can't believe how long that is. But anyway, we've done some amazing things in between. Had lots and lots of lunches for a start. But with Tim, remember all those years ago, we wanted to do a series called Parting Company.
Oh, yes.
Which was about solicitors and, you know, the parting of ways between married couples ending in divorce.
Yeah.
Which was long before its time. That was a long, long time ago. And it was so much fun, but, you know, learning what needed to be done. But this is going to be a really, really interesting talk for me because a writer, a real true writer who's done it professionally is another beast altogether.
Yeah.
So did you know that you wanted to become a writer when you were at school?
Yes, I knew from about the time I was 10 years old, I think. I remember I asked my parents to buy me a portable typewriter.
Oh.
Because I knew I wanted to write. I was torn between writing and acting. I did 3 years of acting school, actually played one professional part and realised that if I was going to be anything, I was going to be a character actor. I'd never be a leading man. And I finally decided the writing was more important to me.
Well, I'm glad that was so because you've done a lot of writing in your time and creating. Now, you know, having success with the musical of Little Women, you wrote that when you were in a bookshop. Did that give you the confidence and the aspirations to become a professional writer?
Yes. Well, I was determined to become a professional writer before that, but that was the first thing I managed to get produced. At the same time, I was writing with a friend comedy sketches for In Melbourne Tonight and a couple of other similar type TV shows. So we were doing gag writing, but certainly that wasn't enough to live on. In fact, one interesting story is the fact that one of the producers used to pocket half our payments and told us to either shut up about it or he wouldn't buy any more of our work.
Oh, my gosh.
And
wow.
sort of karma came around because later he became an actor's agent. And at that time I was script producer on Bellbird, and he rang me up hoping that I might be interested in some of the actors he was representing. And I reminded him of the time that he stole half our payments, and he was horrified to realise who he was talking to and that I remembered. And he said, "Oh, you wouldn't hold that against me, would you? You wouldn't hold that against any of my people that I'm trying to cast." And I said, "Well, I'll always hold it against you, but I certainly wouldn't hold it against the people you're representing. So, no, you needn't worry about it from that point of view." It was just funny that it came around that he had to backtrack somewhat.
Definitely karma. And good on you. I mean, really, it was the right thing to do, not hold it against all his people, because, if I were one of the actors, I know that I'd be pretty annoyed. But, gosh, yeah, why not? Let him know. Let him know. Now, Ray, how did you become a comedy writer for Melbourne Tonight back in 1967? Was it through all those gags that you were doing?
Yes, it was another writer called Bill Dick, and I just tried submitting comedy sketches and gags to the various television shows, and, most of them got taken up. I must say, when you're writing comedy, you really need to write with another person. Comedy comes really throwing ideas backwards and forwards to each other, and if you can make each other laugh, it's probably funny. But when you're writing by yourself, you're inclined to wonder, is this funny or do I just think it's funny? But if you could break another person up with, you think, yeah, this is funny because we're both killing ourselves laughing.
Wonderful.
So, so we just sent stuff off here and there, and it began to be accepted.
Yeah. Because that was going to be a question. Did you brainstorm with another writer? And you've just answered that, so that's great. And of course it makes sense. I mean, if you laugh about his jokes or her jokes or whatever, and, that you've got something going for you, Great.
Yeah. Well, at the same time, he was working on the floor of the ABC, one of the crew at the ABC, and writing of Bellbird at that time had been in Sydney, and they were moving it down to Melbourne.
Right.
And Bill said, why don't we try submitting a script? So, of course, Bellbird was on so early in the evening that I had to make excuses to get away from work a couple of times to manage to get to see the show. But he and I submitted a script, which they liked, and actually commissioned us to write a script. And we did several scripts together. And then James Davin, who was the producer at that time, said, "I'd like you boys to do different separate scripts." So we began writing separate scripts. And, of course, I ended up working on the show for, 10 years nearly, I think, and became the script producer of it eventually.
Wow. That was a really, really good gig, Prior to that, though, you'd done Celebrity Game.
Yes.
As well.
Celebrity Game.
Was Bert Newton as funny off-screen as he is on?
Yeah, he was a very likeable guy, Bert. Very, very likeable guy. The other one that we did a bit of writing for was Don Lane, who was also a great guy.
Yeah.
Actually, he got into a little bit of trouble at the airport coming through with some minor drugs, and he was quite happy to let us make gags about that, which I thought was good of him.
Yes.
He said, "Oh, yeah, go ahead. Everybody knows about it. Go ahead."
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And better to laugh about it too than, sort of, oh, it's really serious, Yeah, laugh it off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, 10 years on Bellbird. Wow. Well, they've always said that Melbourne is the working town and Sydney is the party town. So down in Melbourne sounded like a good idea for Bellbird, eh?
Yes. Well, it sort of took off even more when it moved down there. It really began to blossom, particularly with the country people, very, very popular with country people. And, I was also after I'd been on Bellbird for some time, I began freelancing to a certain extent and also wrote some stuff for Crawford's. Homicide and some of their shows that they had at that time. So I think I've spread myself a bit.
I've got, as well as Homicide, The Box, Bluestone Boys, Sullivans, Skyways Cop Shop. Wow.
Yeah, when I left Bellbird, it was mainly because I was getting so much work from Crawford's that I couldn't cope with both. And because I was sort of, a script producer at Bellbird by that time, which was a pretty hefty job because I was editing all the scripts and creating most of the story along with the writing team. So I sort of got to the stage where I had to either, concentrate more on one thing, and I felt that perhaps I wasn't giving Bellbird the full attention that it needed. So at that time I decided, I'll just go on freelance and do more work for Crawford's, which I did. Crawford's were very keen to get me on staff, but I never ever wanted to go on staff. I was happy to freelance for them, and they kept me in work for a long time. I virtually plotted practically all of the Box and most of the Sullivans. There was, his name's gone out of my head, as names do these days, but a guy who plotted all the war stuff, but I did all the home stuff. Yeah, and then, as I say, I plotted the Box, and I was also writing for Cop Shop and their various other shows. I got a lot of work through Crawford's, and I very much liked Hector. He was a lovely man. Every time a script of mine went to air, I imagine he did this out to everybody. Every time script went to air, you would receive a telegram from Hector telling you how much he enjoyed it, which I thought was a lovely personal touch.
Wasn't he wonderful? And he really, really appreciated every facet of every production too. I mean, we'd have lunches, John and Serge for Young Ramsey, we'd go and have lunches with him, and he was so personal and endearing with comments and compliments. He was just great. Yeah. And that was a lovely thing.
He was one of the people who realised, one of the few who realised, because many of the actors didn't, I must say, how important the scripts were. And he used to say to me, without the scripts, we have nothing.
Absolutely.
He really appreciated the writers, where I must say many of the actors didn't appreciate the writers. They could be quite rude at times about the scripts. So I was always very quick to remind them. I would say, well, try going on next week without one.
It's where it all starts. Or where it all... You must have had a field day on the Box.
Yes, well, it was a bit anything goes on the Box. It was very daring for its time, very daring.
Yeah.
Yes, I think we did things that hadn't been done before. That along with number 96, of course, were the two sort of rather outrageous shows of that period.
Groundbreaking.
It was a lot of fun to plot, I must say, and had a wonderful cast.
Now, do you get most of the storylines or relationships from imagination or real life news items, or all of these? Where do the storylines and the plots come from?
Look, they come from anywhere. They, as you say, from newspapers, you often pick up little bits and points. A lot of it is pure imagination, but of course that's all been fed by everything you've ever read and everything you've ever seen. Sometimes you'll virtually steal a film plot but change it around enough to make it not too obviously recognisable. They come from everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think most people who write have always got stories going on in their head. I mean, I'm retired now, but I still find myself making up stories, almost entertaining myself by making up a story and following through where it could go. Yeah, just some people seem to be story conduits, and I was lucky that I seemed to be one of those. I just seem to always be able to come up with further plot. It's just it's a bit of a gift, I think, in a way that some people are able to do that. And, you might not be the world's greatest writer, but I was a pretty good damn plotter, if I'd say so myself. So, it's just some people seem to be conduit for stories.
Yeah. Did you ever get writer's block? And how did you overcome it, if you did?
Well, I will talk most probably about the team that I worked with on Neighbours, because that was the longest. Overall, I worked 21 years on Neighbours with all the scripts that I wrote and the 10 years that I was in charge of it. I had a wonderful team. There were 5 on the team, and often I generated the initial story, but they would add things, and often they would come up. One of them would throw in something and suggest something that had come up in the story. I used to say to them, look, no idea is too stupid, because we can often bounce something off a really stupid idea and get a really good idea. So just, throw things out there. So, we would have every day we would meet in the meeting room and throw up what the current stories were and try to see where they could go. And between us all, we came up, and it wasn't just me by any means. It was, they would throw in ideas and I would build on them, and they would build on the ideas that I had. It was just a terrific team. And, we created the characters together. They very much... It was very much teamwork. I might be the principal storyteller, but I was by no means the only one coming up with stories,
Yeah. So it's team effort that got through any of those blocks where, you came to win a dead end.
Yes, I'm sorry. That was the answer to your question about block. Yeah. If I was blocked, usually I would be relying on them to throw something at me that would set me off, and that is what they would do. So that is, rarely did we get blocked for any length of time. We usually could see a way out, or someone would come up with a mad suggestion and we'd say, well, that's not going to work, but what if we did this? And so it'd keep coming through. Yeah, very much team effort if you got blocked.
Yeah. And did you go to New Zealand and write The Cleaning Company?
Yes, I did.
That was another one that you did?
I did.
You went to New Zealand?
I did. I don't think that ever went to air. I'm not sure whether it ever went to air.
Yes, I couldn't find a date. I couldn't find a date.
I think they gave up on it. It was a bit of I hate to be rude, but it was a bit of an amateur attempt, I think, and they didn't quite have the resources behind them to go ahead and do it. They had this idea that they wanted me to develop, which I went over there and did, but I don't think they really had the resources to put it all together, and I think it just disappeared. I did do some work over there on Shortland Street.
Oh, lovely.
Later, yes, I think the cleaning company sort of disappeared.
Well, it got you over to New Zealand, though.
Yes, it did.
It's a beautiful country. Yeah.
Yes. I was very shocked, though, when they took me to the beach and there was all this grey stuff there. And I said, where's the sand? And they said, that's the sand.
Oh, dear. Such a different place to Sydney. Now, in 1980, you wrote the song lyrics for Water Under the Bridge.
Oh, goodness me, you have been doing your research, yes.
So, that was an extraordinary cast. Jackie Weaver, Robin Nevin, Rowie, John Howard, just to name a few. Brilliant.
Yeah. Great cast, yes.
Yeah. And did you enjoy doing that? Because I know how you love musicals and songs, and we've been to many shows together. So was it just a wonderful thing that it was yours, the song lyric?
Well, yeah. Look, my main interest, actually, what I wanted to be was the writer of musical theatre.
Had a feeling.
That was what I really wanted to do. And, of course, I managed to write 3 musicals that got produced. And that day I was in the producer's office when they were doing Water Under the Bridge, and he just mentioned that he wanted a lyric for a song, and I said, I'll write you a lyric and what he wanted to be about. And we discussed what he wanted the lyric to be, how it was to be used, and I wrote a lyric, which he said, I really liked that, but he offered me $300 to write the lyric, and I sat down and wrote the lyric there and then, and he liked it, but he said, oh, I feel for $300 I should have got a bit more. Will you write me a couple more so I can have a choice?
No.
So I wrote 3 different lyrics based on the same basic idea and gave them to him, and he ended up liking his original one the best and used it. But he felt that he needed to get a bit more for his $300 than just the lyric I'd written on the spot. But that's the one he ended up using as it happened.
Oh.
So that's how that came about. It was purely coincidental that I happened to be there.
It certainly fulfilled one of your loves, so that's fantastic.
Yes. In a way, I never overachieved what I really wanted to do, which was to become known as a musical theatre writer. Instead, I became known as a television writer, but I mean, that's okay. It became a career, but it was never quite what I intended it to be. Our lives do this, don't they? They go in different directions.
They certainly do. They certainly do. I only wished years ago that we could have been the first ones to have gotten something up about, divorce lawyers, etc., etc.
Yes, well, that was a good idea. And we also had the idea, remember you and I, about the homeless people idea.
Oh, that was a fantastic idea.
Show about homeless people.
Yes.
But neither of them got taken up, unfortunately.
No.
I also had a very good idea about a show called Reunion about adopted children meeting their biological parents, which I thought could have been a very interesting and touching program, but that didn't go anywhere either. They were, there were a couple of, when the realistic programs started to come through, there were a couple that we thought had just ideas about, and unfortunately they never went anywhere.
No, I know. There must be thousands of those floating around all over the place.
Oh, yes.
People having marvellous ideas and really going nowhere because, it just happens. It happens.
Well, I've got a friend who's actually a very good writer, and he's been trying for 30 years to get something off the ground and just hasn't been able to do it. And you just think, gosh, so much of it in a way is a matter of sheer luck, I think, being in the right place at the right time.
Take, for example, your theme song, the lyrics to Water Under the Bridge, being in the right place at the right time.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
yes.
Incredible. Yeah, but you really feel sad for those people who, your friend who's 30 years in the writing, and, well, you've got to hope and pray that someday soon someone might take it up.
Yeah. He's had a lot of ideas and the different things that have all seemed very good to me, but he's never been able to quite get taken off.
Yeah. Now, you were back with Grundy Productions doing lots of shows, Prisoner, Punishment, Sons and Daughters, starting out in Richmond Hill. Gosh.
Yeah.
But didn't you work for young doctors as well?
No, I never ever worked on young doctors. I had a lot to do with the people that were writing it. We were sharing offices and things at times, but I never actually wrote for young doctors, no.
I could have sworn that your name was on a couple of those scripts. Gosh. Anyway.
Look, I don't think so, Lou, to be perfectly honest. I might have done a couple of wayward scripts. I wouldn't swear I didn't, but I can't specifically remember. I certainly didn't write much for it. I may have written a couple of scripts somewhere along the line. I did bits and pieces here and there for Grundy's and lots of different things. But I don't remember specifically writing Sons and Daughters, but that doesn't mean I didn't write a lot of scripts over the years.
Now, Prisoner and Punishment must have been really tough ones to do.
They were, yes. Punishment particularly was difficult. Of course, that didn't last long. There's a big difference between women in prison and men in prison. I think the women have a certain amount of sympathy immediately, where men in prison garner much less easily, I think.
Yeah, I guess that's understandable, yes. Yeah, I can understand that. Now, Richmond Hill, that had a good run, or I can't really quite remember.
No, Richmond Hill failed fairly quickly, I think. I only remember writing one or two scripts for that. It didn't take off. It was one of those shows that just didn't take off and folded fairly quickly. I've been involved with a few of those, I'm afraid.
Yes, there have been.
As well as the really long-lived ones, there have been quite a few others that came and went fairly quickly. Like Starting Out, had high hopes about, but that faded fairly quickly. I'm not quite sure why that didn't take off, because I think it had
legs.
It was lacking there, but it seemed like a very likely show to me, but it just didn't take off. You can never quite tell what's going to work and what's not going to work. You just have to throw it out there and hope that it clicks.
Yeah. And Sons and Daughters, were you involved at the time when Rowena and Belinda were changing places and all that?
Yes,
wow.
Yes, I was the one, I must say, who convinced a very reluctant Belinda to do it.
Yeah.
I said to her, look, if you don't agree to this, we won't continue the show, because I felt we needed someone of her calibre to take the role over. And she was quite reluctant to take on another actress's part,
Understandable.
Yes, to step into another actress's shoes. And she also pointed out that Rowena had not only changed her face, but I can't remember whether it had lost or gained several inches in height. I think Belinda was shorter than Rowena.
I think so too. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Or it might be the other way around. Haven't seen Rowie for quite some time. Yeah.
I do remember there's been an occasion on one of Red Watson's other shows, I think it was The Young and the Restless, where a character went under a dryer and came out as a different actress who was substantially taller than the previous actor.
Oh,
so
good.
It wasn't the first time it had happened.
Yeah.
But anyway, Belinda agreed to do it, which we're all very grateful for.
Yes.
And did it very well.
What a wonderful actress she is. She's super.
Yes, she's terrific.
And a lovely person.
Yes, that's right. I actually have a little anecdote about Belinda. We were on a yacht celebrating some anniversary or something of the show, and I was standing in front of her, drink in hand, and she was sitting there, groomed and looking beautiful. And the yacht tilted suddenly, and my drink spilt all over Belinda, all over her face, head, hair, and dress.
Oh, my gosh.
And she was so amazingly gracious. You would never believe. She went off, pulled herself together as best she could, and was so gracious that she said to me years later, I could have killed you.
Oh, how wonderful. Wonderful. But she is like that. She's a beautiful person. Very, very inside and out. That's great.
Yes, lovely person.
Yeah. Oh, that's gorgeous. I mean, I could just see her drowned in this.
Yes, well, she had her hair all especially done.
Yep.
And just drowned in, because I think not virtually the entire glass just went over.
Yeah. But great that you found out the real feelings that she had years later.
Yes. Well, years later, she said to me, I could have killed you.
She was human after all. Now, Ray, are there any formulas that you work with when writing an episode for a soap series or whatever?
Look, I think you tend to try to avoid working to a formula because it becomes obvious if you do. Often we would come up with an idea and say, no, that's been done too often before, that sort of thing, There's a young writer that I had on the team, Boaz Stark, who's gone on to do many other things. He used to be one who would often say, oh, that's not very original. Can't we do something more original than that? Or can't we do that a different way? He was very good for pulling up things that were a bit too formula. But there's no secret formula because it becomes common too quickly. So you actually try to avoid getting into a formula. And I don't think certainly there's no secret formula to success in this business. I think it's, as I said before, you throw it at the wall, see if it sticks,
Yep.
And often what you think is terrific, the audience turn their noses up at for some reason, and sometimes things that you've got no idea about will be huge successes. It's just very hard to tell.
Yeah.
No sure things.
No. You must have been feeling on top of the world when Return to Eden was a huge success and you were story and script producer and writer.
Well, I had left Sons and Daughters to go and work on Return to Eden for a different company.
Yep.
And Rondies wanted me to come back and do Neighbours. And well, we'd been pressured to a certain extent on Sons and Daughters to do some things I hadn't wanted to do.
Oh, yeah.
And I said to him, I will come back if I can have complete authority over the scripts. There was no such thing, really. I used the term script producer for Bellbird before, said I was script. That is in hindsight what I was doing, but there was no actual position known as script producer in those days.
Right.
There was no one person in charge of the scripts on the shows, or what Americans call showrunners. We didn't have that here. The scripts used to come into and be edited by script editors, who usually there would be 2 or 3 of. There was no one person who oversees the whole entire thing. And I said, I want to oversee it from the first story meeting through to the final script. I think that's important. And it hasn't been done enough. That one person was completely in charge of the scripts, and therefore you get one vision instead of rather muddled visions you get with 4 or 5 different people handling the scripts. No one final person making the final decisions on them. So Red was a bit taken aback about that because I think he liked to think of himself as that person, but he didn't actually do that. He didn't read every script and follow through on it. Once he created the original idea, he tended to hand it over to other people and let them run with it. So he agreed to that, and I called myself a script supervisor just to give it a name, but it soon became, when other shows took it up, it became titled script producer. And from thereafter, I think virtually all Australian shows now have script producers. But before that hadn't happened. Certainly not on what we call strip shows like Neighbours and Sons and Daughters and so forth. All strip shows because they run every night of them and week, not because people take their clothes off.
Yeah, I got it.
And, so that sort of created that position then, which has gone on, and I think shows have improved because of it, because you're getting that one vision holding the shows together, which I think is a very good thing. Americans have been doing it all along. I think they've had showrunners all the way through, but we never seem to have picked that up here.
Yeah. So it was a good thing that, it happened, and you were probably the first of those people to put your foot down and say, hey, that's good. Excellent. But you were on Neighbours for a long time. Shortland Street, what was the run of that?
That was about doctors in New Zealand.
Oh, that was the New Zealand one.
Yeah, that was the New Zealand one.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I wrote a few scripts about that, and I went over there to help with some storylining at one stage when they got a bit stuck. Yes, I wasn't heavily involved with Shortland Street. I just sort of did a few things here and there on it. Because
all along, Ray, you were a freelance writer, so you weren't connected to any one particular production company or...
I went on to staff on Grundy's.
You did?
I actually was in staff for Grundy's,
Yeah.
Before that, I'd been freelancing all through my Crawford years. When I was freelancing for Crawford's, I also, I think I may have still been on Bellbird. I wrote a play for the ABC in a series called A Time for Love. I was doing a bit here and there and everywhere, wherever I could get the work. I must say I was always in work, so I was always very lucky. But when Grundy's contacted me and asked me to come on staff, I decided to take the plunge and actually go on staff. I mean, I was still paid separately for my scripts, so I was able to still write scripts for them as a freelance writer while I was on staff as their script producer for Neighbours. I still got paid separately for my Neighbours scripts. So that was sort of a good earning time, I must say.
Oh, yeah, it was very good, obviously.
Although I tended to become so heavily involved with the script producing, I really didn't have much script writing time at that period because you had to write the scripts in your own time. And I often found I was working up till 9 o'clock in the office, so there wasn't a lot of time for freelance writing.
Right. Now, I've always wanted to know how unter uns, which is German for, what's the translation, please?
Well, it's an interesting name. The literal translation, when it's not very interesting, is just under us.
That's what I thought.
If we literally translate it into English, it simply means under us, which for a sense, as this is a series set in a department building above shops, like number 96, as somebody pointed out to me when I came back to Australia, and I can say with absolute honesty, when I created the show in Berlin, I never even for a moment considered number 96. It didn't occur to me. I said to the young man who was my translator and working with me, Jörg's Buchner, who actually I insisted had to be credited as part creator of the show because he, without him, I could not have done it because my German was very spasmodic. And he also threw a lot of ideas in. And he suggested Unter uns, and I thought, Under Us, that's not really a wonderful title. And he explained that Unter Us means a lot of different things in German. It is used the way the French use Unter nous. It means just between us. I'll tell you something Unter uns. So that's a phrase used for that. It is also used as a phrase meaning, tonight the family will stay in, will be Unter uns, meaning that we'll all be together. So it has three distinct meanings. It means between you and me and amongst us. We'll be amongst ourselves. So it's got a sense of community as well. So it's got three distinct meanings in German, sort of overlap. And so it became an interesting title in German, whereas I said that the English literal translation is not an interesting title, but in German it is an interesting title because it's got those different meanings.
How fascinating. I didn't know that. And I've known about Unter uns because I've known you for 30-odd years, so I've known that you went to Germany and you did it. I didn't, I did German at school, so I understood a little bit, but yeah, wow. So you would have needed to speak quite a bit of German being over there doing a soap opera.
I didn't speak a great deal. I always had a vague interest in German because my father's family were German.
Yeah.
And I had a smattering, just a smattering, really. And before I went, I sort of did myself on a 10-week course when I knew I was going, tried to learn a bit more. Yeah. And I learned enough to get by on, but certainly not enough to write scripts on or to create the show. That's where Jörg became so indispensable. He was completely fluent in English. In fact, he'd just done a German from English translation of Hamlet.
Wow.
Of all things. He said to me that this had to be dubbed onto an English Hamlet. So their dubbing is done very, very well in Germany. They actually try to put vowels and consonants in the same places, so the actor's lips appear to be saying the actual German words. They do it brilliantly. I saw a Perry Mason and was convinced it'd be shot in German. I said to you, I didn't realise they shot Perry Mason in German as well. And he said, no, that's all dubbed. I said, my God, it's the best dubbing I've ever seen. Yeah. He said, well, we really, really work hard. And that's when he told me, he said, I've just had to do Hamlet. He said, you try to get to be or not to be to fit the lip movement. And in German, where it becomes about 10 syllables,
gosh.
And he said, that's the most hellish thing I've ever done. It was so difficult. But, I mean, he was so fluent in English that he was able to, he was as fluent in English as I am. So he was just a joy to work with.
And do you still keep up with Georg?
Jörg.
Jörg.
Yes, I still keep.
Pardon my German.
Jörg. He says to me, I'm glad we still communicate because otherwise I'm losing my English because I have no one else to talk to with it. Yes, I thought they gave him to me as my assistant and I thought he was about 22. And then he started talking about all this stuff he'd done and I said to him, how can you possibly have done all that? And he said, you think I'm much younger than I am, don't you? And I said, well, I thought you were in your early 20s. He said, I'm 35.
Oh, my God.
And he looked like a boy. He really did. He looked like, as I say, at the oldest, I would have put him at 22. I can't remember. I said 35, might have been 33, but he was in his early to mid-30s. And incredibly handsome young man and just a lovely, lovely person. I ended up feeling very paternal towards him, actually. Yeah. He was just the nicest person. And a pleasure to work with. And as I said to them, look, I want you to get equal credit on this. And they said, well, no, you don't have to do that. He was assisting you. I said, no, he was more than assisting. He was collaborating with me. So
good on you.
He needs to get the credit for that. Yeah.
Good on you.
So
fabulous. When people do those things and extend themselves I mean, it was a credit. 7,800 episodes were made over the years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, it's been, I knew it'd been
Wow.
30 years. Yeah, 30 odd years.
Yeah.
Yeah, 32 now. Yeah, which is terrific. I'm just so glad it was very successful for them because they were terrific to work with. It was a joy working over there. I loved it. And we all got on so well. They were delightful people. And, I'm still getting a royalty from that. I've never got a royalty from anything else I've ever done.
Yep.
Except Interwoods.
Gee.
And I've got a royalty for that now for, 32 years. So, which I shared with you. So we've both done very well out of that show.
Yeah.
I earned more for that than anything else I've ever done. Yeah, it's just very unfortunate that in Australia they give no royalties, which is a crime.
Yeah, I haven't seen any, and I should have.
No, we know the actors and the writers here are all in the same position. If we were in America, we'd all be rich out of our minds.
A girlfriend of mine, an American girlfriend years ago, said to me, "Dull, if you had have been in America doing a number of shows that you've done, you would be living on Malibu and you wouldn't have to worry for the rest of your life." I think she was exaggerating, but anyway, yeah.
Well, look, a friend of mine did one Mission Impossible when it was shot out here. He wrote one of the scripts. And when I talked to him several years ago about this, he said, so far I've earned $60,000 out of that show, that one script.
Wow.
So can you imagine if, as you say, if we'd been in America, we would both be very, very well.
I know. Did that come about because of the German series? Because you developed and were head writer.
Yes, it came about because I don't know whether it came from the different countries to Grundy's. No other country in the world had strip television like Australia did. They didn't know how to do it, how they could turn 5 episodes of anything out a week. And Grundy's, whether the other countries approached Grundy's or whether Grundy's approached other countries and said, we can show you how to do this, I don't know. But suddenly Grundy's were sending people all over the world to teach them how to do strip television. And I got sent to Germany. Some of my friends went to Italy. Some went to Russia, of all places. Yeah, so all over the world, Grundy sent people out to teach them how to do this.
How wonderful.
And after Germany, I got sent to France. Well, Germany being joy, France was just the opposite.
Oh.
First of all, the people in the office would not talk to me. I would arrive in the morning and say bonjour, and everyone would turn their heads away. I would go into my office, my secretary would slam something down on my desk and walk away. And this went on for a couple of days while I was trying to create a show there. And I said to her, excuse me, what's going on here? First of all, you are treating me very rudely and no one else speaks to me. Can you give me an explanation for what is going on here?
Yeah.
She said, oh, you English. She said, you come from just across the channel, but you don't bother to learn our language. You come here to show us how to do this. And you don't even bother to learn our language. And I said, well, look, to start with, I'm not English, I'm Australian. Oh, you're not English. Oh, you're Australian. Australian. Oh. And immediately she went out and told the staff, the rest of the staff were men, she went out and told the other 5 men that were outside my office, who immediately came in and invited me to lunch.
Wow.
They hate the English with such a passion. Well, I don't know if it's still the same, but at that time, because they thought I was English, they wanted nothing to do with me.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, they then all became quite friendly and helpful because I wasn't English. Forgave me for not speaking French fluently. And I went and had lunch with them, by the way, and all of them, each of them, pulled their mobile phones out, which were completely new to me at that time. Mobile phones were something I had no experience with, but they were ahead of us. They all pulled mobile phones out at lunch and all spent their time peering at their phones, which I was a lot of good going to lunch with this lot.
Wow.
So I saw what the future was going to be.
Yeah.
So that was the very, very early days of mobile phones. The smaller, we'd had the the types that were sort of brick size before that, but these were the streamlined hand size.
Newfangled dangle. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
But anyway, what happened there is after there had been hundreds of thousands of dollars creating a crew, getting everything together, I was getting the show underway. I was working very much by myself. I wasn't assigned that everything else was just going to have to go through a translator. But unlike Germany, I hadn't been assigned a particular person, which I was hoping was going to happen. Only there for about 3 weeks, I think. Perhaps it was maybe 6 weeks, I'm not sure. I was there only a matter of weeks, but anyway, the thing was beginning to take shape and everybody seemed to be happy, and then suddenly somebody at the channel turned and said, "We don't need anybody else to tell us how to do this. We're French. We can do this ourselves." So they suddenly told Grundy, "Oh, no, I'm no longer interested." And so a small fortune had been spent that went down the drain completely. They just closed up the office and that was the end of it. And it took them 15 years before they came out with something themselves.
Goodness gracious.
But they were unfortunately, very, very arrogant and anti any other country, being thought that any other country had to help them do anything, you know. They were French. They could do anything.
Right.
I believe people now tell me that the attitude has changed a great deal, that they've lost this terrible hatred of the English and, well, the younger people, and are much more open. But at that time, they were very closed off and very, you know, for instance, I had a couple in my story meet at the airport, and they said, "Why are they at the airport?" And I said, "He's coming back from Switzerland," and she'd come back from somewhere else, and he said, "What?" They said, "Why would they leave France?" And I said, "Well, he went with a skiing group. If they wanted to ski, they would ski in France. They would not leave France to ski." And as I said, she'd been on vacation to Hawaii or somewhere. And they said, "We do our vacating in France. We do not go for vacations in other countries."
Ray, what year was this?
1995.
Wow.
They were so insular, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'm insulting French people saying this, but they were so insular at that time. It was just unbelievable. And so biased against any other input from any other country, or it was just really strange. I don't know whether it was just this particular group of people. I won't plaster all French with this. May have been dealing with some particularly closed-minded people, but they were incredibly closed-minded, and it became almost impossible to work with them, and then they just pulled the plug on the whole thing, so it just fell apart. But I did have 6 weeks in Paris, which unfortunately I was so busy I didn't get to see as much of it as I would have liked to, but it was just lovely to have been in Paris. But I think it was 6 weeks, yeah.
Well, I think there was such a struggle in France back then, up until then. I think the year 2000 changed everything, really. But, you know, they expected you to speak French. You know, it was...
Yeah.
You know, and look, they've changed.
It was amazing the difference, the attitude between the Germans, who were so open, and most of whom, except for the East Germans, didn't speak much English, of course, but I discovered that the West Germans were virtually all bilingual. And, you know, everybody I had to deal with spoke English very well. Yeah. So I had very little trouble. The only trouble you'd have if you went into the service jobs were mainly taken by East Germans. So if you went to a shop, you might have a bit of trouble getting yourself understood. But certainly the West Germans were very prone to English speaking, but not so in France. They were much less interested in speaking English, although I had been a lot of people that did speak English to me, but as I say, originally weren't prepared to. Yeah.
Well, you know, you came back to Australia and got stuck into Pacific Drive, was criticised at first and then ended up having a cult following. Yes. How did that feel?
Yes, you know, look, I hardly remember Pacific Drive. Isn't that strange? Was Coral Druin was the script producer on that. She's very good, very talented woman, and she was the driving force behind that. I did nothing really regarding story on Pacific Drive. I was simply writing scripts for it. That's probably why I don't remember it so well.
Yeah.
The shows I most vividly were involved with the ones I was creating story for. Yeah, so I wrote quite a few scripts for Pacific Drive, I recall, yeah.
And then Breakers. Do you enjoy script editing or do you prefer to write?
Look, I like both, actually. I quite enjoy script editing. I find script editing easier than writing because you just, you've already got the script there and you're just making minor adjustments to it, really. Of course, occasionally you'll get a script that goes off in the wrong direction and you have to rewrite large amounts of it, but that's rare. So script editing is a much easier job than writing a whole script. But I enjoy both. Yeah.
Well, in between all this, as I said, Breakers and Headland and all that when you came back, in between all this, you wrote books and musicals. Are you still writing?
Look, occasionally. I'm vaguely playing with an idea for a novel at the moment, but I don't know whether I've really got it in me. I worked on 2 novels with Alda Marshall, who was a Neighbours, one of the Neighbours storylining team and writer. I worked on 2 Neighbours books with hers and then I wrote a book which they called the Neighbours Bubble. You wrote a book that you took the characters out of the Neighbours setting and put them somewhere else and wrote it in what they said a Neighbours bubble so that it didn't interfere with the show that was on air. Your characters, people from the show, but they were doing something somewhere else separate to the show. It was an idea that a publisher had, and I wrote one of those, taking 2 of the characters that I liked from Neighbours and had them having left Ramsay Street for a period and were living in another state. So I have had 3 published books, but they've all been connected to Neighbours. So I'm just toying, but it's so hard to get a book published, so hard to even get a book to a publisher, and I'm told that they'll normally glance at the first page, and if it doesn't grab them immediately, they shove it aside. So I've had friends trying to get books published for years, so I don't have any great hopes, but just to keep my hand in a bit, I've been just toying with this novel. Whether anything will ever come of it, I don't know.
Well, Ray, I think it's so good to just keep your brain active and, if that's your gig, write,
Yeah.
Do whatever you get a kick out of, and you obviously do. So.
Yeah. Well, I like making up stories.
Yep.
And
I'll keep that in mind for our next lunch.
I'd like to write a book about somebody who commits murder and you hope they get away with it. There's a premise of the book that you actually read the book hoping this person will get away with it. And I wondered if I could do that. I could make somebody who could actually kill somebody so sympathetic that you wanted them to get away with it. It just seemed like a different angle.
Yeah.
And so I've just been toying with it at the moment. I've sort of got a few chapters and a lot of ideas for further chapters, but God knows whether I'll ever get to finish it.
Oh, you will. You will. Okay, so the Australian Film, Television and Radio School, you did a lot of work for them too.
Yes, yeah.
Which was great
actually,
to pass it on. To pass on your knowledge.
Some of my pupils did very well. Some of them are working in America now and probably earning the big bucks that we wish we'd earned. I got an email from one of the girls who was doing some quite big stuff over there and one of the other guys doing very well. Yeah, they were smart enough to... I don't know how they were. They must have got work permits or I'm not quite sure how they did it, but they were both smart enough to get work in the States and are doing well. And, so I was glad that some of that I passed on. And I got some very nice emails back from, because I treated my class as if it was a storylining session so that they know exactly what they would walk into. If, for instance, if they were going to write for Home and Away, which was plotted in a different way the Neighbours were. Neighbours was created by a team effort, as I said, with me as the producer, the script producer at the head. But Home and Away, they actually bring the writer of the script in, and he has virtually a one-on-one with the script producer, and they nut the story out together. So it's done in a different way. So I would hold the classes either as a Neighbours type class or a Home and Away type class, because they were the two shows they were most likely to get work on at that time. And I held them, the classes, as if it was the actual what they would be facing, you know. And I got emails from several of them afterwards saying that was terrific, because I went to a Home and Away one and it was exactly as you'd show me it would be, so I knew exactly what was expected of me.
Great.
And the same from the one who went to Neighbours. They said, I just felt fitted in immediately because you showed us how it would be done, you know. So it was a very practical way to teach them, I think.
Very, very good. And
get them used to it.
You were passing your knowledge, your experience, your expertise, everything on to younger people, which is just wonderful, you know?
Yeah.
And they appreciated it.
I enjoyed that, and I had one very disruptive person in the class who very sadly killed himself shortly afterwards. But it was very sad. But he could be quite disruptive, which was, you know, something to learn as well.
Yeah.
But on the whole, they were a terrific group of kids, and I'm glad so many of them have done well.
Do you know that on behalf of all the actors and people in the industry, we just thank you for being so imaginative and really a fantastic writer and script editor and everything else you've done, you know, created shows too. So, oh, wow, what a life.
Yeah.
What a life.
I must say, Lou, one memory I have, which has always delighted me, the lovely Maggie Dens. You know Maggie Dens?
I do. Well, yes, I do.
She's a darling.
Yeah.
Well, she actually came into the office in Sydney and came and said, I've just come in to see you all to thank you for the wonderful role you wrote for me and all the wonderful scripts you've written for me. And the whole writing team was so thrilled because, to be honest, all we ever usually got was complaints.
Yeah.
Because actors can be quite hard on writers.
Yes.
You know, it's rarely that an actor will say thank you. They usually say just the opposite. What is this crap you've given us this week? Attitude, which can be quite defeating at times to people who are pouring their heart and soul into this, you know.
Yeah.
We really cared about the people we were writing for and the characters we created. If we had to kill somebody, if a character was to get killed, we would be crying while we were writing it.
Yeah.
So we really cared about these people, and to be constantly getting harsh feedback from them. So it was just so lovely to have somebody like Maggie come in and say that to us. It was really a thrill, you know, to have a writer come in and say thank you, you know. So that was lovely what you just said. Thank you.
Oh, look, it's just wonderful, and what a life. And just continue to enjoy those wonderful, wonderful musicals and shows. I know you see everything you can in Sydney.
Yes, I do. I do see a lot of shows.
Which is wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, my darling, for a wonderful chat. I've really got to know you even better than I had before, and I look forward to our next lunch.
Yes, not long to go, I hope.
No, not long. I'll ring Lynn.
Okay, lovely.
Okay, my darling. See you even sooner. Bye. Wasn't that just a treat? I told you he was on top of his game. I don't think I'll ever look at a glass of champagne whilst drinking on a yacht the same way again, without thinking of poor, drenched Belinda. It's simply incredible to think that one man's vision held together the shows that defined generations, even if the actors didn't always remember to say thank you. I'm still reeling from those tales of international intrigue. Who knew that being Australian was the secret key to getting a lunch invitation in France? And I'll certainly be keeping his murderous new book premise in mind for our next catch-up. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane as much as I did, make sure you join us next time. I'm off to ring Ray for that next lunch date, as we promised each other. Until next time, keep dreaming up your own stories, stay fabulous, and, my lovelies, a bientôt.
Thanks for listening with an open heart. But now it's time for us to part. So tell everybody that you know to tune in next week to Lulu's show. From set to sofa is where it's at. And Lulu, darling, just loves the chat. She talks to stars with grace and style. Lulu sure will make you smile.